from The Point Forward with Evan Turner. Fun podcast. Checking out this morning. They were talking about Wembanyama. It's Andre Iguodala. What's up, man? Thanks for doing this.
My man, how we doing?
Good. So I didn't, we've been trying to get you on. We're excited to have you. And then I felt less guilty about it after seeing the video of you asking Jokic to come on your podcast. I mean, it's a tough game out there for all of us now on this side of it.
You know what? There's a 22-year-old kid out there that I feel like the movie Taken. I went to go find him. He was the kid that posted that video. I was so upset because this role that I'm in right now, you try to make sure that, when I'm on the job, I don't make certain requests. And so I try not to ask players for anything. So I was on the job and the word podcast didn't come up. We were actually speaking of something I'm looking for him to do as the best player in the world. So that was a request. But it had nothing to do with a podcast. It has nothing to do for me. We were just kind of joking about, like, he got the torch right now and some of the insane things that comes with being the best player in the world. So we were kind of joking. And that's why he was pointing to Luka, like, nah, he's the best player in the world. So that was the conversation. And some 22-year-old kid, the kid, Charles Barkley says, somebody in the basement just making up stuff. And now it looks like I'm asking for a guy to do a podcast. So I was a little upset about that. I'm still a little bit upset about that.
You should be, because now we're setting the record straight, though. So I like that part of it. Yes. Now I feel bad a little bit because, honestly, that's how Jokic responds when he's asked to do a podcast. So that's what I thought.
Well, I guess that's his response, period.
Okay, this is a perfect transition because I got to see Jokic live again last week. I was leaving Denver, and I was like, I don't care that it's the Wizards. I just want to watch him. And I'm just not going to take my eyes off of him the entire time. And you always find something new with him and how impressive he is. And then we see Luka go insane. Granted, they lost on the last second shot against Cleveland. Yes. Let's do this. I'm going to give you 4 names. Tie game, playoffs. Who are you most scared of out of this group? Jokic, Luka, Embiid, Giannis with the ball in their hands. Tie game, playoff.
You said Giannis, you said Luka, you
Embiid,
said
and
Embiid.
Joker.
Well, you forgetting the guy I'm most afraid of.
Okay, I like this.
But if I had to pick one of your guys, or am I picking any guys?
Were you picking Steph?
Steph, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is really good.
So you think SGA is the scariest guy to have the ball in his hands right now in that scenario? That's I'm not saying you're wrong. Now I feel bad I left him off of it. I like your answer.
I think he's coming into his own. Kawhi Leonard is still a guy. If he's healthy in May, he's like undefeated at going to the finals healthy. Like, if he's healthy, he's getting to the finals. I think his track record has proven that. And so until someone takes him out while he's healthy, Kawhi's there. Obviously, Steph is scary. The bigs are a little bit different. Throughout NBA history, has there ever been a big where, you need a last second shot, you got to go to your big. Now, back in the day, you can go to the post and there wasn't as much double teaming. But now it's really hard to get the ball in the post or be able to make a move. But Embiid's perimeter skill set, he's scary. He's scary. But out of the 4 guys you named, Luka's tough. Luka's gonna get off a good shot. Everyone thought that he only went left to a step back, and he's on a certain wing. But he's built a counter in his game. Oh, I am losing my mind. Oh, I'm losing my mind. Kyrie Irving is not even close.
Whoa. So wait, yes. You're going with Kyrie now over everybody we've talked about.
For the last second shot, I'm going with Kyrie.
Wow.
Yeah, Kyrie's really good.
Well, no.
You talking about fear factor at any given moment, or for like that moment, Kyrie. Because with Steph, I think he's proven to teams that you can double him, and if you could just try to get the ball out of his hands, then I guess that's the way to combat him. But with Kyrie, he's just so good. Like, he's able to, you can't get the ball out of his hands. Shaq just said he was his favorite, or no, Allen Iverson said Kyrie was the best ball handler in NBA history. And I've been told that I was crazy for saying that. But Kyrie's my second favorite player behind Steph.
Well,
And Steph's my teammate. So
I agree with the Kyrie handle thing. We've never seen anything like it. I also think Kyrie's the best small finisher that we've ever seen. And when I say that in front of anyone around Philly, they just go like, "No way, it's Iverson." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the longevity. I mean, and honestly, look, the stats at the rim would back it up.
yes.
That Kyrie's finishing package at the rim for his size, I've never seen anything like that. On top of the handle,
And
um,
Kyrie might be the best small post up player we've ever seen as well.
better than Mark Jackson. I'm
Yeah,
just
well,
kidding.
Mark
He
Jackson,
was bigger.
he was posting up to pass, and he had a good hook.
No, I love Mark Jackson's post game
Mark
back in the
Jackson, I
day.
remember Mark Jackson. He had his nice hook shot, and then they were lethal in Indy. But with Kyrie in the post, he's posting up guys. Well, Mark Jackson was guarding guys that were guarding him was his size. The other team puts the biggest wing defender on Kyrie night in, night out. So he's at a 6-inch disadvantage every single night with the guy who's guarding him, his primary defender.
Yeah, and he's hitting those turnarounds, that baseline turnaround, and he gets the space.
Yep. And he's probably got the best footwork that we've seen in the post. Left, right, pull up, right, left, pull up, jump stops, step throughs. I think Jalen Brunson, what we're seeing Jalen Brunson do with his footwork, Kyrie has been doing this for, a decade plus. And you talk about fear factor, you ask anybody in the league, that's a scary guy to see.
Okay, I like that answer. I guess my I've always felt like if I want the best possession, it's Jokic but I don't know that he's taking the shot. Like he's probably going to get me a good look, right?
True.
Where Luka and the way playoff games kind of break down, it's like, all right, this is why you guys get paid all that money. Like, get a shot off when everybody knows that you're going to take it. And the way he can ride a defender on his hip,
Mm-hmm.
and the defender just feels helpless. Like, you know what he's about to do, but you don't know where the ball's coming from, and he's going slow, and the help comes, and he did it last night, and then he passed. He had two amazing passes off of these drives.
Yeah, one to Kyrie, opposite corner. Yes.
Yeah. So it's so hard. It just seems so hard physically with Luka with his change of direction. It's not his speed, it's his angles.
Yeah, well, I think you can't use the pick and roll as much late in the game because if you're going for a last second shot, the Warriors, have been, people are saying that that's an issue that they can run into. You run into a pick and roll, they're just going to double the ball, just get the ball out of the primary ball handler's hands, which is what you want. You want someone else to beat you. We've always said that. And so with Luka, he's able to make one-on-one moves. But if you get a strong guy that can defend him, you know, like a Kawhi or a PG or one of those lockdown defenders, it may cause for a tough shot. I don't know if I've seen anyone be able to guard Kyrie. I don't know anybody that's been able to guard Kyrie. I mean, when I saw what he did when he was in Cleveland and Pat Beverly was chasing him all over the place in Houston, and he put about 4 moves in one possession on 4 defenders in Houston. This is one of the best clips I've ever seen. He spun off of him, went behind the back, bounced over high, finished crazy. The other night, it was one of the best finishes I've ever seen. He went up with his left hand on the left side, and then he switched it to his right hand, and he had an easy layup on the right side. He decided to come back to the left side and flip it opposite, and he fell down and watched it all happen in slow motion. It was one of the best finishes I've ever seen, and it was for no reason, but he made it look like it was easy. It was like MJ when he switched hands for no reason, but that was one of the more impressive things I've ever seen.
Do you think about how 16 finished? I mean, you've got 4 titles, so I don't think it would haunt you the way it would have beat other players if that was your only time in the finals. But
Right.
like when you think
Do I
back
think
to the
about it?
close,
No, not at all. Because it was funny because in that moment you're so locked in. When I heard it, I heard a loud boom. The block, I heard it. And I was like, good God, that was amazing. Like, that was one of the few times that I was able to, like, appreciate what goes on in the game. Because I've never given LeBron props while I played because I just didn't want that. I didn't want him to have that mental edge. And that's one thing you got to have when you're playing against LeBron is he's just like one of us. You have to think that. Understanding that he's not, but yeah, when we're on the court, who I match up against, I'm just as good as. And you have to approach it like that because I think there is guys get a little fear. The moment gets too big, and the moment's only big if you make it that big. And so I've never been able to like see true greatness, even in my own teammates. So like with Steph's runs, I would have to go back and watch the games like a year or two later, and like, oh my God, Steph has some incredible moves. But in those moments, I can't really appreciate it because I'm really locked in on what I have to do, like crash the glass, or I got to get back. Steph's shooting, so I got to get back because he's, usually the point guard gets back, but if he's shooting, I got to get back to help him out. And so you don't really get a chance to like appreciate it. But in that moment when the block happened, I was like, oh my God, that was incredible. And I didn't even see him blocking the shot. I just heard a loud boom. And I was like, oh, somebody got shot. It was crazy. So, and then, you end up with four of them. And I know, what I've been able to do in my career, extend my career, switch entirely new positions, which is tough for an athlete to do psychologically. The whole mental aspect of, being a starter and going to Olympics, winning gold medals and playing the All-Star games and being the man and having the ball in your hands a lot. To just completely go into another situation and being able to adjust to it and excel in it, things like that. I've been able to appreciate about my career and just be, you gotta have fun with it all, especially in this day and age.
This is a really, there's some obvious answers to this, but you come into the league, you play a few years with AI. By the time you got into Golden State, it was clear that Steph was going to be a dude. And then he takes it to another level, the MVPs and the titles. So I don't want to ask a simple question of like, how are they different? Because I think we know the obvious ones, but can you compare, contrast what it's like to have Iverson is kind of the main guy for you as a younger player, and then you coming into Golden State and being more of a vet and having Steph be kind of the guy?
Yeah, so I felt a similar way because, like I said before, it's really hard to comprehend or appreciate greatness on your team from my perspective because I'm so locked in on what I'm doing. But you've had those moments where either it was in practice or maybe, from the bench, you might have a small second or two where you're able to appreciate it. I think it's really like helpless is the word to describe having to guard one of those guys. I've seen it before. Like Allen Iverson scored 60 against Orlando Magic and Steve Francis, and you knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to get to a spot. He was great at getting to the elbows. And then Steph, I've seen it in practice a few times, and I've gone up against him, rehabbing. But just last year, where he made like three threes in about 2 seconds combined. And I was guarding him. And I'm like, I can defend still. And I'm like, wait, how did he shot one time? I'm like, no way. Like, he didn't even see the rim. Turned around and the ball was just going through the hoop. I'm like, Jesus, like helpless. And they're so different, but they give you the same feeling, which is crazy. And so with AI, what I didn't understand, or people don't understand, and I didn't know, is how good of a shooter he was. Like, yes, he was a volume shooter, but when I saw him get shots up, like after a practice on a random day, he didn't miss. And, KD coined the phrase KD makes, back rim straight down, back rim straight down. Like, it's like the KD makes. Like, this is what we teach our kids. This is what I teach my son. Like, no, I want KD makes. I don't want switches. Back rim straight down. Just, like, that's when you know you're controlling the ball, you're controlling the trajectory, you're controlling your arc. Like, that's when you know, like, you're locked in. And it's the same way every single time. So I want you to get 8 straight KD makes. I've seen Allen Iverson have 50 KD makes. And like that's all he needed to get himself back in the rhythm. And people don't understand how great of a shooter he was because he was 6 feet tall. He took some tough shots. He's got bigger guys. He's one of the first to have bigger guys guarding him. I never met DeMar Johnson from Cincinnati in Denver. That was the first time I
Yeah.
seen like a 6'9" guy guarding the smaller guy because, no one else could guard him. If Steph and AI, this is where they're very similar. If they have someone the same height as them, I'm guaranteeing they getting 30. And so when we would go into games and I would see Steph, people don't understand how tall Steph is. Steph is 6'3", pushing 6'4". He's a big guard, and people don't understand why we were so good defensively is because Steph is the shortest guy at 6'4". Now it's, myself, 6'6", or it was Klay Thompson, who's 6'7", Harrison Barnes, 6'8". Draymond Green is the tallest 6'5", 6'6" guy we've seen in league history, him and Charles Barkley. And Kevin Durant, 7 feet. We had JaVale McGee, 7'2". We had Andrew Bogut, 7 feet. Festus Ezeli, 7 feet. Like, we had really tall lineup. Sean Livingston, when he was playing a point, he's 6'7", 6'8". We had really big lineups. And when I saw that they had a smaller guy guarding Steph around his height, if they were 6'3" and shorter, Steph was going to get 30. I'm like, oh, okay, we got a good night tonight. Because they're just too short. He's going to see right over you. He's already shooting over 6'7", 6'8" every single night. You know how easier it is to shoot over 6'3" versus 6'6", 6'7"? And it's everything centimeters in our game. And the same thing with Allen Iverson. When they would have smaller guys on him, it was just like, oh, this is an easy night. Like, he was getting 35.
What I always loved about your game is just how multiple you were. You were asked to do a lot. And when I watch Oklahoma City and having a little, intel on kind of the roster design of other teams talk about it. Be like, hey, you paying attention to what the Thunder are doing and what they're trying to do? It's like, hey, multiple guys that can kind of interchange and everything. And we know they're young. And I feel like it's super dismissive to go, well, they're young, so they can't win the West. They're healthy. Their guys play all the time. I'm a little worried about Chet, but I heard you talking about them. Like, you look at them as it feels like, I don't want to speak for you, so I'll just ask the question, like as good of a chance as any of the other West teams to come out because of the way they're built. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, the youth is real. And, the 1 and 2 spot in the West is scary right now because the Lakers or the Warriors sneak in. They're both battle tested. So you do need to have experience going through a war-like scenario, not real war, but you need to have, that in the sports metaphor of a war, that experience of going in hostile environments or, understanding like 150-50 ball can make the entire series. LeBron understands the moments. And so, J.R. Smith may not have called timeout. It wasn't his fault, but that was their only chance to win a series. I think, LeBron understood the ramifications. Like, this is our only chance to have a chance. And if you let, one moment slip by, then that's it. And it's not blaming one person, but that's just the importance of every single possession in the playoffs. And I think that's where there's a big difference between a regular season and the playoffs. You got to see a team, anywhere from 4 to 7 times, and they're adjusting every single game. It's a chess match every single game. You know each other's plays. But that's how you identify who's taking the torch, who's the next best player in the league. And that's what makes Shea so scary, is that he scored 30, 35 more than any other player in the league. And so that's what makes him scary. He knows how to get to his spots. You can't force him into any, bad shot. He knows, like, hey, I can go left, I can go right, I can get to the elbows, I can step back for the three, I can get to the basket, finish with both hands. I got a 7'4" guy that can extend as well. Then we can switch everything with Luke Dort, Jalen Williams. They're playing with a lot of confidence. They got one of the best shooters in the league, kid coming off the bench, who's playing Philly, forget his name.
Isaiah Joe?
Isaiah Joe, shooting it
He can
lights
shoot,
out.
man.
He's just shooting it. And so they have the recipe for what the league has become while also not being exposed to the weaknesses that the league has become as well. So it's just been an amazing balance that they have. And you got to give Sam Presti a lot of credit. He's been able to build probably this might be his second, team that he's had to construct in a small market. We haven't seen anything like this. The Spurs consistently being good, but Tim Duncan played, 2 decades. But for a team in that market to be able to build what they're building again, is just, you got to give them a lot of credit with how they run their organization.
When you watch the Warriors now, what do you see?
A scary team. They've been a little bit inconsistent, but when they put it together, it's like, watch out. To see what Kuminga has turned into, which, I was able to see him every single day and tell him to stay patient. Just heard, what's my man's name? played for the Lakers, coached for the Denver Nuggets. Brian Shaw. I saw Brian Shaw speaking the other day about Phil Jackson, and Brian Shaw speaking about his puppies. And he said, when you get German Shepherds who are like guard dogs, you can't tell them no the first 2 years of their lives or dog years or whatever it is. You can't say no to them. You got to just let them be who they are. You got to let them be killers. And once you 2 years, now you teach them discipline. Where with Kuminga, and he said Phil did the same thing to Kobe, where he would get on Shaq, but he wouldn't get on Kobe. One day in practice, like, yo, why don't you get on Kobe? He was like, listen, we got to make sure Kobe's in kill mode when we need him to be in kill mode. Like, we can't hold him back. We can't hold him back. And with Kuminga, we win a championship his rookie year. So in that scenario, you kind of have to hold him back because we're still competing for championships. When you got a young guy with that talent, in order for them to go out and just go and play and let them play through their mistakes, you'll take some losses. But when you're trying to compete for a championship and you actually have the opportunity to, it's a very, very difficult balance. And so for him to just stick with it and to, go through the battles of being so talented but being held back, and then this year to just be playing how he's playing, he's the second best player on the team. I don't think anyone outside of, our core group or the Warriors could see that. And Wiggins having a slow start, but Wiggins is picking it up. Clay being comfortable coming off the bench. He scored 25, 35 coming off the bench. He's having some of his best nights. Chris Paul is a sleeper on that team. I've been saying it for quite some time. If you look at their record just before CP got hurt, a great record. And then CP got hurt, they struggled. Then they lost Draymond. Then they really struggled. Then Draymond comes back, and now they're playing well. And then now CP's back. Their bench is probably equipped to compete with any other bench. One of the best benches in the league. Clay and CP leading the way. And then they got a rookie with some of the most, unbelievable confidence that we've ever seen in BP playing out of his mind. It's a recipe for a team that can scare you. So, but, on a nightly basis, you don't know what you're going to get. They'll lose a tough game that they should win, and it throws off their seeding. And now they're in 9 or 10 seed, and they got to win 2 tough games on the road to try to get in to win it all on the play-in side.
All right, I'm going to ask a tough question here because Bill Simmons and I have debated this now going back 2 years. I think it's hard for us on the outside to understand Draymond, but I also realize the personality of the team, that I think every team needs somebody that's on edge all the time, and Clay and Steph are amazing, but you need kind of one guy. And his theory was that after the pool punch that it derailed the entire season. My theory was this team is too battle tested to let something like that derail it, and then it wasn't a very good season. Is there anything to add to that?
No, there's nothing to add to that.
Okay.
No, I mean,
look, I didn't know if you're going to like the question or hate the question. I can understand if you don't like it.
No, it's not that I don't like it because it's your job to ask, and you learn as a player, as a teammate, as a coach, as a GM, as a spectator, as a fan, as a scout, as an opponent. You learn through others sometimes, and maybe how to handle the situation or how to react to it, or if you're even in a situation on either side, how to respond from it all. And so, just did an interview this morning. I was interviewing someone, and we were, speaking about failure, and then how do you bounce back from, some of your moments where, put you in a light that you never saw yourself being in or didn't want to be in. And so I try to take a look at it from that perspective. Even for me as a teammate, some things I would have done differently, and seeing things earlier so it doesn't happen, or responding in a different manner so we have a better reaction coming out of it. And so that's just how I try to look at it. Both my brothers, both did a lot of great things with them. One thing I say about NBA players is once you're in this league, it's just in this fraternity as a league, and then on a deeper level as a teammate, there's things we understand about each other that no one else in the entire earth can understand. It's only like 4,800 NBA players ever on the history of the earth. And so we're in a small fraternity, and, you don't really understand it or appreciate it because of all the noise that's surrounding you. And so I've just learned to take it very preciously, and you look at it from that perspective.
Well, I appreciate you being cool about the question because
No, I'm cool. I'm really cool about any question. Like Raymond Ritter had me doing interviews like 4 times a day, so I've seen it all. Raymond's my guy. Ray's my guy.
No, Ray's a good dude. You can download The Point Forward with Evan Turner and Andre Iguodala wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for the time, man.
No, I really appreciate you. Thanks for the hard questions. I like the hard questions.